So an early penalty for the Kiwis, crossing the pre-start line just a little bit too soon. And just explain the ramifications of that for them, Ken.
Well, they got to start 2 boat lengths behind the other boat because of that penalty, unless they can wash the penalty out and make Great Britain actually foul them. So that's the only way they can actually clear themselves, by forcing a penalty on Great Britain. If you're Great Britain, you're kind of running away right now. You just don't want to have anything to do with them. And start 2 boat lengths early, and off we go. You heard Peter Burling just say we just got to start on his tail. He doesn't look like he's going to be aggressive and go after and try to wash that penalty off, but you never know.
So 13 just boxing, clever at the moment, trying to negotiate their start position.
Again, you'll see Ainsley just taking his time here. He's going to want to slow the other boat down a little bit. Make sure you're going fast off the starting line if you're Ben Ainsley. As soon as there it goes, the penalty goes away, 2 boat lengths has been achieved, and the race is up.
Straight up on the foils, and the boat speed picking up all the time on this first reach to the mark. Emirates, New Zealand. So New Zealand looking to just put that early penalty behind them.
34 knots of boat speed on New Zealand and only 31 on the British boat, so kind of zoomed right back in on this reach a little bit. Kiwis are not slow.
Chatter about the speed of the British boat in advance of racing here in Bermuda, but this looks pretty speedy in the early exchanges, and Sir Ben Ainsley taking an interesting path past the first mark.
Joey Newton, unforced error by the youngster going into that start.
Yeah, it sure was, Ken. Pretty inexcusable, that one. It's one that you've done plenty of match racing. You know, we've all done it once or twice, but at this level, you should never be early for entry. And you see them 2 boat lengths behind. It's a pretty tough place to start this race.
Time will tell just exactly how much it cost them. Peter Burling always glancing over at Sir Ben Ainsley. He's keeping a very, very close eye on what that other boat is up to.
The Kiwis are quick, there's no doubt. They've made a couple errors, but they keep kind of zooming right back into play. They're actually going a little bit lower and a little bit faster than the Brits right now. Can they make it stick, though, before they get to the mark? Will Ainsley get aggressive here and actually luff it?
Well, we know what that means. The Japanese know exactly what that means. The grinders probably have the scars
Ainsley's going to have to split, because these guys are in the box early, but he doesn't do it. He decides to force them into a tight rounding. Really fast, the Kiwis on that leg. They started well behind and went rumbling by.
Not the cleanest of turns for the British boat, just losing a handful of key meters.
And Ainsley might have thought there was no sense in being aggressive and actually luffing him well before they got into that circle. He has an overlap at this stage, but once you get into the 3 boat length circle, the boat on the inside, which is the Kiwis, have right away to round unobstructed. Ainsley decides not to jibe and do the split at the other mark and get a little high, a little low, and a little unstable. He just looks like he doesn't have a pulse.
Youngest sailor at the 2008 Olympics.
These are
Beijing.
buttons, so they don't have the handles on this boat. They have buttons all over the place. You see them pushing buttons all the time. So they have definitely a different philosophy on how to control the boards and what the helmsman's actually doing on the boat versus what a lot of the other boats have gone to. A lot of times as a helmsman, once you kind of get your system sorted and get comfortable with it, you don't want to make a change, even though there may be some dramatic improvements out there available, sometimes you say, nope, I'm good. I'm cool with what I got. I'm used to it. I'm ready to go.
I guess as well, it's a timing issue too. You can see there, 11th hour racing, very often 11th hour changes don't make for a settled team unit.
That's a fair point. Look at, there was a right-hand wind shift that the Kiwis got there over the last 30 seconds or so. Went from a fairly close race to all of a sudden 150 meters ahead. Again, big wind shifts out here. Don't count anybody out at this stage. Well-dressed fans. Was that your family?
Arguably. I need to get one of those jackets. The margin that the Kiwis hold now over Great Britain is drastically reduced.
But dramatic wind shift. Look at the angle by this boat here and the angle by that boat down at the bottom. All of a sudden, this was a 150-meter race that turned into about 50 in no time. Again, big wind shifts out on the race course, and traditional match racing tactics by Emirates Team New Zealand, tacking right straight on top of and using the wing wash to affect the Brits.
And so smooth. So smooth on the tack. Again, flying at a comfortable height. Seemingly, they have great control. It looks so smooth, doesn't it?
They have long, I mean, let's go back down to Joey Noon for a second. They have very long horizontal parts of their foils, of their underwater foils, Joey.
Yeah, they do, Ken. And all the boats are a little bit different, and it's sort of a product of all the testing that the teams have done over the past couple of years. And everybody's arrived at a different solution, and that's why you see some boats, like Team New Zealand today, very fast downwind, maybe not as quick upwind.
With several kinks here, you know, there's all kinds of kinks all over those dagger boards, and the shapes are really intriguing.
Yeah, that's right. And there's a rule, a box rule, that those boards have to fit in, and that's why you see some pretty weird kinks, and the designers have done some pretty strange things
I see. Okay,
to make them fit.
Tell you, Ainsley's got right back into it, but this is where he struggled several times, even in the practice session the other day. Going around weather gates, he ends up crashing bow down into the water more times than not. He did it yet again, and struggling out of it.
Really been set back there, haven't they? I mean, virtually stalling. Boat speed down to 6 knots.
Something dramatically wrong with how their controls are working coming out of those windward gates. We've seen them on many occasions, including the practice racing 4 or 5 days ago, really having a hard time with their foils. And look at that, it was a 50-meter, 50 to 400 in no time. Really disappointing for the Brits and their stability coming out of the windward gate.
And a massive change in the dynamic now.
Unbelievable.
One maneuver, admittedly a very poor one from a British perspective, and the Kiwis now flying almost certainly all the way home with a 400-meter lead. Again, the contrasting styles between New Zealand and their cyclors.
Yeah, nobody can tell me that the guys on the left-hand side aren't way better windage-wise. Whether they're producing the estimated, it sure looks like they have comfortable power on that left side compared to kind of a herky-jerky power on the right-hand side. Now, what does that all mean? That's a whole other set of questions.
Perfect viewpoint for so many of those gathered on shore. The Bermudians really getting in behind this event. The opening ceremony, wonderful yesterday. And this perfect setting, this amphitheatre, the island lending itself to great spectator vantage points. The Kiwis flying around, a little bit of the hulls dipping into the water, but they recover so well. And they've got this healthy buffer. The cushion is a plump one right now for those of a New Zealand hue.
This is going to sound like a broken record, but just very simply, one maneuver can devastate your race. And one maneuver for the Brits at that top mark, bearing off around that top gate, plugging the hulls into the water, literally cost them 400 meters. And you would guess, inevitably, the race.
Well, it happened, didn't it, on the fourth leg of their race against the Americans, the second race of the day. Similar problems that need fixing in a hurry.
Go back to that previous gate, see this key moment. They look stable, they look fine. They're not overflying, they're not popping. Oh, there's a little overfly. All of a sudden, the curvature of their board comes out of the water to leeward, and it gets very unstable. So I think Joey was right when he said it earlier in their first race of the day. It might be over height that's actually leading to the crash rather than just stuffing the bows. Once they put that weather hull in the water, I think it's just the wheels came off, so to speak.
So this is serene progress at this point for Peter Burling and the Kiwis.
You keep keying in on these steering wheels, and again, those buttons, look at those buttons all over the steering wheel. What those buttons actually do, we may never know, and we may never know, period. We probably won't know till the end of the Cup cycle anyway, but most likely they're there to control the dagger boards, the fore and aft, the side to side, rake, leading into maneuvers. Phenomenal. How there's buttons all over the place. Boxes, buttons. I bet you one of those boxes might actually just, I'm not even going to speculate.
So Emirates Team New Zealand stretching up towards the next gate, and they are closing in on victory. A spirited bit of resistance from Sir Ben Ainslie and co, but this is looking like a bit of a cakewalk from here.
This is where they've clearly given up a little bit of their lead in order to stay completely in sync with Ainslie, make sure they're on the same side of the race course. There have been huge wind shifts out here, and clearly these guys made the mental notes this morning that if they got ahead, they were going to stay in the same water. They were not going to take the chance of splitting, and it looks like they have a nice little cover on the Brits leading into gate number 5.
The New Zealanders ploughing their own furrow. We know how they like to go about their business, and in advance of this regatta here, so much talk about their lack of match racing in comparison to those who've been out on the Great Sound here in Bermuda beforehand, testing each other, pitting their wits against each other. They've done none of that, New Zealand. They've put their confidence and their faith in their own preparations, and it seems to be paying off.
I mean, obviously, literally and figuratively flying. Going really quick. On that first run, Ali, when they just parked themselves behind but up to weather of GBR and just put the pedal down, that was as impressive a speed difference I think we've seen in this whole event so far. That wasn't a maneuver. That wasn't a fluke. That wasn't somebody making a mistake. That was hammered down boat speed.
Downwind for the final time for the New Zealanders, and in the meantime, a ton of ground to make up.
Let's see if they have that same struggle, at least if they can. They have to rectify the problem. So even though you're behind, doesn't mean A, you ever give up, and B, can you rectify a problem that you had earlier in the race? So We know they've had struggles getting around this top gate and keeping stability, overflying, I think. Let's see if they can figure out how to fix it.
Well, one last chance to see that happen in front of us here. British boat rounding the gate. And that's a test of their technique.
Again, a pretty high flight, but a stable flight. Ainsley, obviously, again, he's got the grips back there. I think he's in control of the dagger boards. And Joey, is it safe to say that Ben probably is controlling the fore and aft rake of the dagger boards as he's going around those corners?
We've lost him again, but he'll be back. Is there some comfort in some regard for the British crew that they seem to have one major concern?
Well, I think their major concern is the boat speed difference. You can rectify the fly height problem in some form or fashion. That fly height problem going around the top mark might take a couple times, but they're going to fix that. I would be far more worried about the boat speed on that first run. The boat speed difference between the two, we haven't seen anybody pass like that before, like the Kiwis did on that run.
So the New Zealanders are heading for home, and they're cruising it, really. Just a little bit of a dip before the finish.
Yeah, and that's a lot of that is on Glenn Ashby. I mean, and not on them. They like sailing that weather hull so far angled down. Ashby is as in control of that as anybody. He's controlling the wing. He's controlling the power source in order to keep that hull out of the water. So, you know, again, I know I've said this plenty of times before, but Glenn Ashby thought to be one of the most talented, if not the most talented, multi-hull sailor on the planet. This is obviously a new environment, but it's a good guy to have on your side, I'm guessing.
No doubt about it. They have really crushed the British in this race. They have found wonderful boat speed, and Emirates Team New Zealand head across the finish line with another win to their name. 2 from 2 today, 3 in total, and they are looking in dangerous form, I would suggest. Everybody will be keeping a very close eye on Peter Burling and the rest of his Kiwi crew. Terrific victory, and you need to look a long way back to find Sir Ben Ainsley.
Isn't it a great feature when you finish the race and you have to keep pumping the hydraulic fluid? You can't stop and even shake hands with your buddy. The boats do not sail without hydraulic pressure. They don't. The wing doesn't trim. The foils don't work. You have to keep that pressure on. What's going through the head of this guy?
Rather stony-faced Ben Ainsley. They've got a little bit to address, and today has not panned out as they'd have liked it. Although I guess, you know, you could look at it from the other perspective, from where they were last night, with a gaping chasm in the base of one of their hulls. To be out on the water at all is something of a triumph, but they set their standards very high, and they've fallen well short today. So the end of the day for Land Rover BAR and Sir Ben Ainsley. Not the happiest of outings today. Well beaten in the final analysis by New Zealand, and issues to address